This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Tonight, we're going to continue our journey as we the people who have been focused on a specific path related to gaining a clearer understanding of our great nation, how it's structured, how it's supposed to work. This flag that I love behind me, which is a great symbol connected to our amazing nation, this seal is a reminder of us to pray for the White House and the occupants thereof. I'm continuing to pray for the 265,900,000 working Americans who in 2024 were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. 78% of working Americans struggled hard in 2024. We know that 79% of Americans felt the country was going in the wrong direction. The majority of the citizens spoke loud and clear regarding their position on what is important in this nation, and they issued a mandate loud and clear in the election. We had an election. We, the people, spoke loud and clear on what was really important in light of all the dynamics being presented to us. I've repeatedly asked on this venue, who needs to be the leader of America? What's at stake? Does it matter who's in the White House? Well, that determination was made via an election. And the battle still goes on in the hearts of people for sure. As would be expected, there are a lot of dynamics going on. And there's a lot on the line. Tonight, as we move forward, we're going to look at the specifics of the tools of persuasion as it relates to how this has affected our nation and how it will continue to affect us as we the people. Our clinical perspective will take a look at the dynamics of manipulation. Manipulation and persuasion can go hand in hand, and how this may affect any of us in our life's journey. From so many angles, we're being persuaded. Many of us are being persuaded, some more than others. Persuasive powers are great and are often effective. What is persuasion? Persuasion is a process in which one person or entity tries to influence another person or group of people to change their beliefs or behaviors. Earlier this year, I had the privilege to visit the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. In the Holocaust Museum, there was a plaque that's worth our attention. That plaque that I saw that arrested my attention, it was entitled Tools of Persuasion. This is what it said. Nazi propaganda drew its power from the government's absolute control over the flow of information. All news media were censored by Joseph Goebbels' propaganda ministry. He was the minister of propaganda, Hitler's. Freedom of speech was ruthlessly suppressed. Freedom of speech. Beginning on September 1, 1939, Germans who listened to uncensored information on foreign radio broadcasts risked severe punishment. Stick with me. We're going somewhere and it's expecting us when we get there. Endless rallies, parades, speeches, rituals, and sham elections were tools of public persuasion. Every year, Germans were expected to participate in hundreds of Nazi events. Such ceremonies reinforced Nazi ideology among the faithful and helped to weed out the disobedient. Goebbels also exploited the latest techniques of film and radio to communicate Nazi achievements. The government made inexpensive radios that were called people's receivers available to every German household. There was some serious programming going on. there was a serious tools of persuasion that were in full effect. Just days before the election that we had in November, the New York Times and progressive group Media Matters for America were accused of pressuring YouTube to demonetize conservative voices, including Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro. And let me add Janice Pons. It didn't happen on YouTube, but I've gotten some pressure from some other venues. Anyway, and other people have too. The move comes as part of what critics see as an organized attempt by left-leaning groups to stifle dissent against Kamala Harris when she was running. They were trying to control what people could say. I was censored, and so were many others. Shapiro, this is what Ben said. He revealed that he was approached by somebody named Nico Grant, a Times reporter, who informed him that Media Matters research would serve as a basis for a piece highlighting conservative misinformation on YouTube. The goal appeared to be targeting those who oppose Kamala Harris. Okay. Shapiro shared screenshots of the messages showing Grant asking questions about YouTube's monetization policies and past messages concerning misinformation on Shapiro's videos. Media Matters, founded by Clinton ally David Brock, has spent years attacking conservative voices by organizing boycotts and pressure campaigns. Known for labeling differing opinions as misinformation, the group appears to be focusing on high-profile conservatives on platforms like YouTube. In his social media post, Shapiro stated this. He said, "That's the entire game here. Run an article in America's most trusted newspaper that declares conservative purveyors of misinformation on YouTube." It's a playbook, guys. Tucker Carlson, another target of that campaign, posted screenshots of his conversation with Grant on X, used to be Twitter. Carson's response to the Times reporter was blunt, calling the inquiry shameful and accusing the Times of collaborating with a left-wing hate group to silence critics of the Democratic Party, squelching freedom of speech. Carlson then shared his exact response to the reporter, asking, and he said this, please quote me. He said, quote me in what I said. Shapiro and Carlson argued that discussing changes in voting rules is protected speech. I've been talking about our constitutional rights. It's our First Amendment constitutional right. They argued that discussing changes in voting rules is protected speech, highlighting that the Times itself had reported on controversial election issues in 2020. Media Matters' ongoing efforts to label conservative discussions as misinformation, it's just drawn criticism for being politically motivated, especially when it came close to Election Day. The involvement of Media Matters, backed by major Democrat donors, has sparked concern over whether this coordinated effort is a form of election. Was it a form of election interference aimed at silencing critics before the votes were cast? Republican leaders in Congress, they were demanding answers after the White House allegedly altered, listen to this now, altered Joe Biden's remark in where he referred to Trump supporters as garbage. GOP lawmakers accuse the White House of issuing a false transcript to soften Biden's language and allege that this could violate federal law. Then, listen, guys, stick with me. We're going somewhere that's expecting us when we get here. We got to have facts. Then, House GOP Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik, she's a Republican out of New York, and Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican out of Kentucky, sent a letter to White House counsel Edward Siskel arguing that the administration's actions appear politically motivated. In the letter, they contended that the White House may have violated what? The Presidential Records Act of 1978. What did it do? It's designed to govern the accurate documentation of presidential communications. The controversy centered on Biden's comments during an event with a Latino voting group where he responded to a comedian's joke by labeling Trump supporters as garbage. A video recording showed Biden saying, "The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters." However, the official White House transcript modified the language. They changed it, reading instead, "The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters, his demonization of Latinos." 54% of Latino males voted for Trump. You see how it was twisted? Stefanik and Comer criticized the White House for allegedly whitewashing the president's words, insisting that the American people's we just deserve transparency, especially when the election was approaching. White House staff cannot rewrite the words of the President of the United States to be more politically on message. Journalist Michael, what was that man's last name? Schellenberger. Michael Schellenberger raised similar concerns, arguing that the White House's alterations seemed legally questionable under the Presidential Records Act. Schellenberger stated that the change makes no sense, given that Biden's words were captured on video. See, they just sell it short. They can't even be intellectually honest, really. Honestly, we can hear for ourselves. When the altered transcript casting doubt on the White House, it just cast doubt on their intentions. This investigation highlighted rising tensions as GOP leaders call for accountability, while the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, faced scrutiny over the accuracy of its public statements. Both sides continue that clashed over transparency and adherence to the rule of law. So, with the dynamics of persuasion, my brothers and sisters, my fellow Americans, the dynamics of persuasion, is it possible that the end goal is to manipulate us as we the people? Is this a tool of persuasion? No different than what Hitler used during his time to influence people? Are we the people being manipulated? Let's examine this tonight, my fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters, from a clinical perspective. We're talking about tools of persuasion, and we're going to talk about the dynamics of manipulation regarding our clinical perspective. How might we know if we're being manipulated? Here are some things to consider, to think about, to determine if we are being manipulated. If we're confronted with manipulation, do we need to know how to recognize it? You know, if you feel a little bit off in some interactions, you might have an inner sense, just that knowing that something is wrong. It's like a little scratch inside. Am I being manipulated? Are your needs being ignored You might feel like your needs aren't even being met. They're being purposefully ignored. Is that, I'm asking out loud, we're talking out loud, is that a form of manipulation? You can end up acting out of character. Why would you end up acting out of character? What kind of pressure may be being put upon you where you're not yourself? You may be saying or doing things that aren't true to who you are. Are you responding to being manipulated? You end up feeling fear, guilt, or obligation. You're acting out of guilt, acting out of fear, acting out of obligation. You might feel scared, obligated, or guilty about doing something. Are you being manipulated? You may even doubt yourself. You might be told you can't do something or you just don't understand. That's gaslighting. You don't understand. The problem is you don't understand. And if you really do understand, you're made to feel emotionally drained. You end up feeling anxious at times, fearful, doubtful of your own needs, your own thoughts, your own feelings. Why? Are you being manipulated? Are you being gaslighted? You might be dismissed to make you doubt and question your own reality. That's not what's really happening. And you're looking at it unfold right in front of your face. They gaslight us as a nation. You're being passively aggressively treated. In other words, passive aggressive is whoever they're really upset with someone or something else, but they take it out on you. They're passive to whoever really did something, but they aggressively take it out on you. Physically, verbally, emotionally. You might be given sarcastic comments or jokes that can be dismissed with, "Oh, I was just joking." Yeah, that part. Are you being triangulated? You might have another person brought into the mix to justify an opinion or make you feel insecure, bringing a third party in with a specific purpose. Are you being threatened? You might be given comments or behaviors that instill fear in you purposefully. It's on purpose, it's willful. Are you being ignored? It might be you being ignored or someone may cease talking to you as a form of what? Emotional punishment. Yeah. You're being given smoke screens. You might raise a concern and then your partner or whoever you're interacting with deflect by bringing up an unrelated situation. If you're unsure, you can seek external perspectives from trusted colleagues, mentors, or friends. You got to listen, what's the value? I started to say you got to be talking to somebody, but you don't have to do anything. What's the value of having a mentor? What's the value of having a trusted friend? What's the value of having trusted colleagues? What's the value of the therapeutic process? You can share your experiences and ask for feedback to help you do what? Discern genuine intentions from manipulative tactics. What have we looked at tonight, my fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters? We've looked at tools of persuasion. Hitler mastered the use of tools of persuasion. Do we still have those dynamics going on today? And from a clinical perspective, we looked at the dynamics of manipulation. If, peradventure, perhaps we are being manipulated, is it important for us to know what that may look like? What are the observable, measurable characteristics of being manipulated? If we are being manipulated, is it important to know it? And then we have to decide, what am I going to do about it? Listen, you know me. I want to provoke thought, bring awareness, and support us together in terms of embracing intervention. Intervention is going to look different kinds of ways: support groups, therapy, talking, relationships. Listen, we are on a journey in this nation. I believe God is not done with America. You know why? Because we're still here. We are one nation. They tried to divide us in all kinds of ways, but we're one nation. There are tools of persuasion that have tried to divide us as a nation, but we are one nation under God, indivisible. There have been all kinds of tactics to divide us, and these tools of persuasion have been masterfully orchestrated to divide us. But we, the people, those that get it, we love our fellow Americans. Yes, we do. And we're going to keep going. I want you to keep showing up. Share this. We want to support each other. We want our nation to succeed. My fellow Americans, my brothers and sisters, we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we support each other, as we pray for each other, as we go together from destruction to dignity. Listen, keep coming back. We're going to keep going because we're going somewhere. Yes, you and I, we're going somewhere together as a nation. We're going somewhere together. And it's expecting us when we get there. I'll see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.